Fuck it, I'm just gonna say it. This is the God of War Estrogen Edition. Now, that's certainly not a bad thing, and Heavenly Sword is a pretty decent game once you start playing the motherfucker, but let's call a spade a spade. This is God of War, the Vagina Monologues. There's nothing wrong with some vagina every now and then, and the YouTube auditor can tell you a cunt pun for me is always worth the laugh. But Heavenly Sword models itself after God of War, and it shows. And as you see in the background, it's the hack and slash genre. This was actually part of a huge push of games Sony rolled out in 2007 with all these exclusives that were supposed to kick Microsoft in the ass. Oh man, Sony had this entire game plan to create a shitload of games that were supposed to top Microsoft's selection of games in the end of 2007. 360 was going to get Forza, Halo 3, Bioshock, the original, Mass Effect 1, the original, and the last two obviously came to PC and eventually came over to PlayStation 3. Sony, on the other hand, had a few named games of their own. Motorstorm set it off pretty nicely and got some pretty good reviews, and the first Uncharted came around at that same time, and we've all seen what that franchise has turned into. There was also a Ratchet & Clank game that hit the markets as well. However, there was this trio of third-party games that were touted as the next great franchises for Sony. Heavenly Sword was one of them, the other two were Lair and Haze. Oh man, those shits were horrible. Holy fuck, those shits were absolutely horrible. Lair had such a cool idea of being a dragon flying around this damn game, whatever, and Haze was supposed to be a Halo killer. The only thing that game killed was the studio's reputation and the jobs of every single person who worked on that game. Holy shit, man. Now, on a side note, I rented both Lair and Haze at my local Blockbuster at the time. Yes, it was that long ago that Blockbuster was still in fucking business. You know, they used to have this cute Cuban girl with a fat ass that used to work there that I would go to pick up my games whenever the fuck. But anyway, Haze was so horrible that it was delayed into 2008, and it was still horrible. Lair was uncontrollable, so you couldn't fucking move your damn dragon at all, and that left Heavenly Sword as the only decent game of that little trio group. The other two games went on to pretty much bankrupt both studios that made the games. Factify was out of business not too long after Lair, and Free Radical Design ended up being bought out by Crytek. So Heavenly Sword can be seen as the success for that group for not putting their studio out of business. Now, on another side note, these three games are a big reason why Sony hasn't bothered with third-party exclusives anymore. With their own studios, they're able to put pressure on their own studios to make games up to their standards. With a third-party vendor, they don't have that luxury. You don't have that pressure to put on a studio. So in the end, Sony decided to just stick with their main studios for exclusives, said fuck it to all the third-party exclusives. It's a pain in the ass trying to deal with you motherfuckers. But anyway, this is a decent game overall. It's not God of War. And what made this even more difficult to play is that God of War 2 was released on PlayStation 2 earlier in the same exact year. So now, you're going up against your inspirational game, which was a huge blockbuster hit, and this game has tons of elements from God of War, other than just the hack and slash part of it. The chain system of getting consecutive hits is a staple in any hack and slash game, just like God of War. Power-ups, energy, health bars, all of that good shit. The moves and the progression aren't as robust as God of War, but you can tell most of the moves and the ideas were modeled after God of War. Now, the story isn't half bad either. It starts off showing the death of the main character, Noriko, and then warps into like that 5 days earlier crap where you can see how the ending unfolds and all that other shit. Apparently, this sword is the Heavenly Sword, and the person chosen to wield it will create world peace. Of course, it has magic powers and all that other shit, and the bad guy of the game wants a sword for himself to dominate the world. Oh, motherfucker, we've seen this shit before. And Noriko, she ends up taking the sword as a last resort to save her clan from the bad guys. So, as the game progresses, you see that the sword is really nothing more than a curse. And although Noriko is supposedly the chosen person to wield the sword, her clan figures that she's bad luck or a bad omen because she was born in that exact same year that the supposed hero was supposed to be born who was going to wield the sword. So basically, you're the baddest motherfucker on the planet and nobody likes you, including the same dipshits that you're trying to protect and save. Yeah, fucking great, man. You also have this little special child that follows you around. Kai, I believe was her name, whatever the fuck. Apparently she's like an animal. I don't know. I don't remember much about her other than she's some short bus material, and you need her in the game to shoot arrows at people. You know, I'm sure she has a backstory, but we're talking about a game from 7 fucking years ago. I don't fully fucking remember what her purpose was or what her backstory was. So you know what? Fuck it. She's in the game. As much as this game tries to mimic God of War, it's missing a few things. Titties is one. No, really, God of War had no problem with nudity, but you mean to tell me that in not one fight, Noriko couldn't have a goddamn wardrobe malfunction wearing that outfit? No, seriously, not one nipple? Look at that shit. You mean to tell me she couldn't even get a damn wet t-shirt contest up in this motherfucker? Later, she's actually gonna have a battle in water, and of course, we get no wet t-shirt, man. No, but obviously there's more to a game than just titties and shit like that. The main thing this game is missing is full-scale boss fights. God of War goes for the quick-time events with boss fights on a massive scale. He doesn't just fight a boss that's like 2 times the size, 3 times the size. No, he goes for bosses 18, 20, 100 times his size. With Heavenly Sword, it goes for human-sized bosses with a different variety of attacks. Yes, God of War fights are pretty easy, but that kind of creative vision they have with how Kratos can end the fight was fucking insane. Here, we fight a guy named Roach. Yeah, Roach. How fucking fantastic is that? You know, I know it's hard to compare a game like this to God of War, considering the acclaim God of War receives, but it's not hard to notice the differences between the two series, especially considering God of War 2 was just released on PlayStation 2 earlier in the year, and created one of the finest games for the hack and slash genre. Basically, this game had to compete with God of War, and it's not God of War. It's not fair to compare these two games, but that's just the reality. If you're going to create a hack and slash game that's an exclusive to a console that already has an iconic hack and slash game, yes, you're going to be compared, motherfucker. I don't care if it's unfair or not. That's just the reality. So when people looked at this game and looked at God of War, they said, what would I rather play? I'd rather play God of War. And you know what? You can't blame one person a single iota for saying that. Now, unfortunately, over the years, there was always a persistent rumor that Heavenly Sword would get a sequel and that it was in the works or whatever the fuck, or that there was a movie in the works. They got all kinds of shit, man. I'm not sure what the deal was with the movie, but the sequel of the game sure as fuck isn't happening. Ninja Theory has already stated they're not doing the sequel, and Sony owns the rights to the game. Sony gave it to another studio for future release, but they ended up canceling that game shortly after getting the motherfucker. So for those of you who actually enjoyed this game, chances are this is going to be the only time that you're ever going to get to play as Noriko. It ends with some decent closure, so it's not like having a game that leaves off saying it's going to be a trilogy, you know, like Two Human was on the Xbox 360, but it never really got the full love that it could have gotten. You got some closure at the end. You're just going to have to enjoy Heavenly Sword for what it was, a one-time game that was pretty much above average. Personally, I thought it was an above average game, and because I needed some quick games to play on my PlayStation 3 during those early years, this fit the bill, especially after playing God of War 2 just a few months earlier. It could have been better. It could have made some general improvements to the story, some graphic animations, or whatever the fuck, but overall, it's just another game in my lineup that I probably could have sold for a Snickers bar or something all those years ago. Anyways, that does it for Heavenly Sword. As always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And tomorrow we have another PlayStation 3 exclusive for you, so you want to stay tuned for that.